Hello, everyone, and welcome to another attributed session brought to you by Dream Data. Today, we're gonna be doing one of those funny things where we're gonna try to join real science together with practical execution of marketing, particularly B2B marketing, which is what our listeners, viewers typically are involved in. And joining me today is Nancy Harhut with us, which I would allow you to introduce yourself in just a minute, Nancy. I'm very excited about the conversation because I think nudging is such an interesting discipline that reminds us marketers about basic things that we should be remembering as we're doing marketing, but maybe we get caught up in very advanced processes or thinking too much about all sorts of other things than what we actually should be thinking about when we do our campaigns. I think I read on your LinkedIn, Nancy, that you've won more than 150 awards throughout your career. So I guess you know what you're talking about when it comes to nudging. But Nancy, I saw you speaking in Odense maybe a year ago, which I really enjoyed. So that's why we reached out to you, hopefully to have a day like today. But for those who've never come across you, Nancy, or your work, could you please kind of introduce yourself?
Sure. Well, thank you very much. I'm delighted to be here. And my name is Nancy Harhut. I'm the author of Using Behavioral Science in Marketing. And basically, when you hear a title like that, you think, oh, science, I don't know. That might be a little bit more complicated. That's white coats, lab coats, test tubes. But really, what we're talking about is the study of how people make decisions. And in marketing, it's all about how people make decisions. We want to know how people make decisions so that we can influence those decisions. We can increase the likelihood people do what we want them to do. And so that's what I do. I wrote a book about it that includes, I think, 25 different proven, practical, actionable ways to increase engagement and response. And then I'm also the co-founder and chief creative officer of HBT Marketing. And what we do at HBT Marketing is we focus on that intersection of marketing best practices and behavioral science in order to make sure that the emails, the landing pages, the direct mail, the social posts, the ads, everything we do for our clients is designed to get the most possible response. It's designed to get people to pay attention to the message, to understand the message, and to ultimately respond to it. So that's me in a nutshell.
Super nice, Nancy. I would love to hear just a little bit about how you got here, because I know you have a very rich career behind you. But what led you to this intersection between behavioral science and marketing that you've arrived at today?
Yeah, so it's funny. I've been in marketing for my entire career. I grew up as a copywriter and started to work my way up the ranks in the different ad agencies and marketing agencies that I was working at. But one day, a mentor recommended Robert Cialdini's Influence, The Psychology of Persuasion. Really good book. Maybe some of your listeners are familiar with it. And I read that, and that just sent me down the proverbial rabbit hole. I read that, and I just wanted to read more and more and more. And, I was, underlining things and making margin notes and thinking, I can use that for this particular client that I'm working on. And I can use, this approach for this other client I'm working on. So I started to, my head was like spinning with all these different behavioral science principles. So I started to infuse them in the work that I was doing. And we started to see results. And to me, that was the point of no return. When I started to use this approach of behavioral science and was seeing an increase in terms of the response that we were getting for our clients, I said, this is the way to go. And, fast forward years later, I had the opportunity to co-found an agency where we would focus specifically on this. And I decided, why not? Let's give it a try. I'd always thought, I don't know if I want to run my own agency. Maybe I'd rather just work for someone so I can do the thing that I do really well, and other people can do the things they do really well. But when you're running your own agency, you do the thing you do really well and some of this other stuff. But I have a really good business partner, and the two of us have created this agency. We've been running it now for about 7 years, and this is what we do. We focus on behavioral science and marketing best practices, and it's giving great returns to our clients. They tell us that they haven't found an agency that does exactly that we do, and they're very happy with the results that they get.
That's probably a good way to kind of slip over to like describing what nudging and behavioral science is. Can you give one or two practical examples of tasks you do for clients and what kind of results that it leads to?
Sure, sure. So here's a great B2B example. We were doing some work for a financial services company, and that company used financial advisors to sell their products, information about saving for retirement, for
Yeah,
example. And what they found, they were starting to look at their financial advisors, and they identified this group of them that had stopped selling the product. They were, I guess, selling other clients' products, but they weren't selling my client's product. And so they were like, oh, well, this isn't good. We need to reactivate them, right?
yeah, yeah,
And so they tried to email them. They tried to, have the wholesalers call them, tried to kind of get that relationship going. And it just it wasn't reigniting. It wasn't reactivating. So at about a year, they said, all right, we're going to engage the agency and we're going to try to do something, some kind of a marketing campaign that might work because this individual outreach that we're doing isn't. So we decided to use something called the reciprocity principle. So what behavioral scientists have found is when somebody does something for you, whether or not you asked for it, but when somebody does something for you, when you're the recipient, you feel like you want to return the favor. If you've received something from a another person or another company, you want to even the score. So, Stefan, if you had sent me a birthday card, I would say to myself,
mm,
I have to remember to send him a birthday card on his birthday. Or if we had been working together and then you said, well, let's go out and have a beer, and you bought the beer,
yeah,
I would say to myself, the next time I'm going to buy the beer, I want to pick up a
yeah.
round. So we don't like
Otherwise,
to.
karma is coming for you.
Yes, yes, exactly. We don't like to feel that
No,
we owe somebody. We feel that it's the polite thing to do to reciprocate.
yeah,
So our agency is told, create a campaign that we can send to these financial advisors who over a year ago used to work with the client, but that had stopped. So we found this New Yorker cartoon, and it had something to do with selling financial products, right? And it was cute and it made you smile. And we were able to put the individual financial advisor's name in the caption. So, mine would say Nancy, yours would say Stefan. It was the caption,
yeah,
but then was your name in it. And so we framed it, we put it in a box, we sent an email that said, watch the mail because we're shipping you a box with a
yeah.
gift. And then a few days later, the box shows up and it's this framed New Yorker cartoon. It looks really nice. You can hang it on your office wall or put it on your desk. It's got your name in it. It's appropriate to the work that you do, the industry that you're in. And then in the box, we also had a short letter that said, this is what we've been up to. Here are a couple of tips that might help you as you try to grow your business. And the client came back to us and said that this single campaign generated 68 million in incremental revenue. And that is the power of the reciprocity principle. Right? These people had stopped doing business with my client.
Yeah,
They didn't ask for a framed New Yorker cartoon, but my client sent it to them. And what do? Suddenly you're thinking about my client again, but you're also thinking, they gave me this really cool cartoon. I should do something to reciprocate. So that's just one example of a behavioral science principle and how in B2B marketing we can make it work for us. We can use it to our advantage.
that's fantastic, Nancy. It immediately got me thinking on a campaign we probably should be doing for our clients as well.
Well, what's
Um,
interesting too, Stefan, is a lot of times people think, oh, I will incent people. I'll say to them, I will send you this framed New Yorker cartoon if you start to sell our products again. And there's nothing wrong with
yeah,
incentives. We know incentives work, but if you really want reciprocity to work for you, you have to give first and
mm,
then, let the recipient return the favor. So you kind
yeah,
of, you give to get. You give first with no expectation. It's like, here you are. We'd love for you to come back and start working with us, but this is something for you.
mm,
And it's different than saying, if you come back, then we're going to give you this. And
yeah.
that's it's again, both the incentive and the idea of reciprocity work, but reciprocity in its purest form, you're going to give without any strings, and then you get that response. So I just want to mention that, like, it's
That's
it's a
super cool.
nuance, but it's an important one.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, wonderful beginning, Nancy. I'm definitely motivated to to learn more. if we take a, if we just to bring everybody on board, the discipline of nudging. Let's maybe try to define that, or is it interchangeable with behavioral science, or is it like a how do those two words connect?
Sure, sure. So, nudging is part of behavioral science. So, when we talk about behavioral science, we're talking about well, how people behave, and most importantly, how we can get them to behave the way we want them to behave. Because we're in marketing, right? We want that
Yeah,
behavior. We want the click or the call or the visit, the purchase or the repurchase or the referral. We want to influence behavior. And
yeah,
what behavioral scientists have found is very often people don't make these well thought out, well considered decisions. A lot of times in marketing, we think they do. I mean, let's take a step back. I think I make well thought out, well considered decisions. You probably do too. We all do. We think we think we know why we do what we do. We think we make the decisions that we want to make, and we say that we're not influenced. We're not influenced by what we read. We're not influenced by other people. We're doing what we want to do, and we really believe that, and in marketing, by extension, we think that that's true for our customers and our prospects.
mm,
But what behavioral scientists have found is very often we're not making these well thought out, well considered decisions. Sometimes we are, but very often we're cruising along on autopilot, and we just default to certain decisions, right? We try to save mental energy, and so we've developed these hardwired behaviors, these automatic, instinctive, reflexive responses, because they allow us to conserve mental energy. And so as a result, we cruise along on autopilot, we encounter a certain situation, and we just kind of respond automatically or reflexively. Again,
yeah,
gee, this company just sent me this Frame New Yorker cartoon. Without really giving it a lot of thought, I'm like, oh, I should give them some business, right? Stefan just bought me a beer. I'm going to buy
yeah,
him a beer. We just respond automatically. So,
yeah,
um, so what behavioral scientists have found is there are ways for us to trigger or prompt or nudge some of those automatic responses.
yeah,
And the idea is, if we know somebody is more likely to choose the middle option, for example, let's put the thing we want them to buy in the middle. We're going to give them three different choices, but the one we hope they'll buy, we're going to put it in the middle, because most people just gravitate towards the middle. They think the one on the left isn't going to be as good. The one on the right is maybe going to be overpriced, but oh, the one in the middle is going to be perfect for me.
yeah,
And so what behavioral science allows us to do is take advantage of these decision-making shortcuts that people use. And sometimes it's a nudge or a prompt. Sometimes it's just the way we create information, the way we display it, the words that we choose, the layouts that we choose, because people prefer things that are easier to understand, that are easier to think about. And so in marketing, that means that if we use language that's free from jargon and acronyms and complicated phrases, we use language that's a little bit more simple and easy to understand, we're actually creating cognitively fluent marketing materials, and that's going to make it more likely that people will engage with and respond to our marketing messages. So that's not necessarily a nudge, but it's another way to use behavioral science in order to increase the likelihood that people do what we want them to do.
decision making shortcuts. Then that's a term I will not forget anytime soon. Can you just go a little bit deeper about how people can enable these decision making shortcuts towards their brand service business?
Sure, sure. So, I was talking about making sure that the copy that we write, the marketing messages that we put out there, are cognitively fluent. So that's part of that is using language that people understand, that's easy to understand, that doesn't require them to really think or do some research, right? But there are other aspects to the language that we use in our marketing messages. There's something that I refer to as eye magnet words, and they're words that have been scientifically proven to leap off the screen or off the page and attract the eye like a magnet, because there are many different ways to say a similar thing, but some words are going to be more impactful. So uh, there's a company called World Data, and they found that if you use the word free in your subject line as opposed to using complimentary, you get twice as many opens. Free and complimentary mean the same thing. One would even argue that complimentary seems a little higher end, a little nicer. "Oh, this is
Mm,
complimentary for you," but free actually gets you twice the opens. And of course, you know, there was a time when you wouldn't want to put free in your subject line, but now you certainly can. It's not going to get you flagged as spam. Um, Behavioral scientists also talk about something called the reason why. And what they found is people are more likely to do what we ask them to do when we give them a reason why. So, we're in B2B marketing. Of course, we want people to, sign up to watch our webinar, or we want them to download our white paper,
Yeah.
or we want them to, uh, put us on the short list, right? There are the things we want them to do. And we think if we just give people the information, here's when the webinar is, here's how you sign up. It's really easy. There's no cost. We're like, we're done. Okay. We've provided the information they need to make a good decision. The webinar will cover these topics. Here's the date. Here's the time. But what we want to do is we want to come full circle, and we want to provide the reason why. You should
Yeah.
listen to the webinar because you're going to find information that will be helpful to growing your business. And we might think as marketers, well, that's self-evident. Like, why else would I be doing this webinar if it weren't,
Yeah.
but what behavioral scientists have found is by simply providing that reason, people are more likely to do what we want them to do. There's a researcher named Ellen Langer, and she conducted this experiment with people who were lined up to use a photocopier. And she sent someone to the head of the line, and she instructed them to say, "Excuse me, can I cut in front of you?" And 60% of the time, they were allowed to cut, which I
Mm.
think is high. I'm like, wow, people are nice. People are nicer than I am, apparently, because I don't know if I would have said yes, but 60% of the time, they're like, sure, cut in front of me. Then Dr. Langer repeats the experiment a second time. And she sends someone to the head of the line, and she instructs that person to say, "Excuse me, can I cut in front of you? Because I'm in a hurry and I have these copies to make." Well, the 60% number goes up to 94%. And as I tell you about the research, you might say, well, they said they were in a hurry. But she repeats the experiment a third time, and she instructs the person to go to the head of the line this time and say, "Excuse me, can I cut in front of you? Because I have some copies to make." So the 94% number drops to 93.
Mm.
Statistically insignificant, still that same big lift over the baseline 60. And if you think about it, everybody was standing in that line because they had some copies to make, right? You don't stand
Mm.
in line at the photocopier to get a coffee.
Yeah.
Doesn't work that way. And she identified the word because as an automatic compliance trigger. When we see or hear the word because, we just start to become agreeable. We kind
Yeah.
of snap out of our, stupor and realize, oh, someone's asking me to do something for a reason. And we have a tendency to say yes. We say yes before we even fully process what comes after the word because. And that's why providing the reason why can be so powerful. We don't have to say, oh, you should choose our company because we'll save you $1 million. I mean, if we can say that, that's great, but most of us can't say that, and we don't want to lie. But if you say you should choose our company because you'll find that we're very helpful. You'll find that you like our customer service. You'll find that other companies like yours prefer our products. Those are all good reasons. They're not, we're going to save you $1 billion reasons, but they're good reasons. And having those reasons has a tendency to make people do what we ask them to do, has a tendency to make them, I should say, more likely to do what we ask them to do. So providing the reason why. So using language that's simple, using certain eye magnet words like the word free,
Mm.
um, you know, uh, the word because. Another thing we should really be doing more of in business to business marketing is using the word you. And a lot of times in marketing, particularly in B2B marketing, but also in B2C, business to consumer, we focus on ourselves, our product, our company,
Yeah.
we, it's all about what we can do, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
we believe in our products, we believe in our company, and we want to tell people about what it is, that we're doing. But people will, as they're reading, we skim and scam, and we will gloss over our company. But the word that our eye goes to is the word you, because you is me, right? It's a substitute for my name, Nancy. It's a substitute for your
Yeah.
name,
Yeah.
Steph.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so when we see the word you, we engage. So that's another great eye magnet word. And in marketing, particularly in B2B marketing, we should be using you a lot more often than we should be using I, we, or the company's name. So I magnet words can be very, very powerful. Providing the reason why can be very, very powerful. Using simple language without a lot of acronyms and jargon, that can also be very powerful. And in all of these cases, we're not forcing people to do something. We're just serving up our marketing messages, serving up the information in a way that makes it more likely that people will pay attention, that they'll understand, and that they'll engage. They still have, free will. As marketers, we don't have a magic wand that makes everyone do everything that we want all the time. We can't, but we can make it more likely, and these are ways to make it more likely.
It's almost hard for me not to smile, Nancy, when I listen to you, because some of the things you're saying are, they're so obvious, but we're so busy with our work and task and carrying out all the check boxes that we need to do that we forget about these simple things, like you need to say because something, or some words are very let's just say complicated and others are simple to understand, and it actually matters a lot when we do our ads, when we do our emails, and so forth.
Yes, no, you're absolutely right. And we have this checklist that we have to, things that we have to get done. This needs to be out at a certain time. It needs to include this information. It needs to be targeted to these people. And we have a lot going on. And so it's easy to sometimes think, as long as the information is accurate and as long as there are no typos, we're fine. But sometimes choosing one word over another or framing things one way over another can make a big difference. Speaking of framing things, there's the idea of loss aversion. And what behavioral scientists have found is people are actually twice as motivated to avoid the pain of loss as they are to achieve the pleasure of gain. But what do we do in marketing? In marketing, we focus on the gains, the benefits, the advantages, all the wonderful things that will happen if you become my client,
Mm.
you become my customer. And there's nothing wrong with that, but a little well-placed loss aversion can go a long way because people are actually twice as motivated to avoid the pain of loss. So sometimes instead of saying take advantage of or
Yeah,
get in on, we
yeah,
want to say don't miss out on, right?
yeah.
Don't miss this opportunity. So when we're really, really busy and we're just going through that checklist, we sometimes don't think, but we need to stop and just review the marketing messages and look for opportunities where we can put in an eye magnet word, put in some loss aversion, look for marketing strategies where we might be able to use some reciprocity, where we send something first, right? And
Mm.
then reap the rewards that follow. It doesn't require a huge amount of time. It doesn't require lots of money. You don't have to change your marketing stack, your tech stack. It just requires stepping back a little bit and looking for opportunities to optimize the copy, to optimize the marketing messages, and make sure that they're taking advantage of these decision-making shortcuts that your audience routinely relies on.
Very, very interesting, Nancy. So last week we published a benchmark report where we kind of studied our customers' customer journeys, and one of the findings in there is that the average deal that was won had six stakeholders associated to it in the CRM. And I can't help thinking about whether there's a way to kind of translate this kind of decision making shortcut into kind of this B2B world, where we know, of course, we need somebody who becomes passionate about our product, but even that person needs to go back to like a committee of people to nudge them to say thumbs up to this product. Um, so I could imagine in B2B, if we kind of started doing, I guess maybe you can call it like buyer committee mapping, you could probably start thinking through like who are your champions actually going to face when they return to their company, and what are all the answers you need to provide in order to enable your champion to sell the idea about your product internally. Have you done any works in those kind of areas before, Nancy?
Yeah, so I think what you're talking about is unlike buying a candy bar at the supermarket, a B2B decision is more considered, it takes longer, and there are more people involved, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so what we need to think about is what's important to each of the decision makers along the way, because it's going to vary based on the segment you're talking to, right? So the end user who's going to be using the technology or the product, they have one set of concerns. The person who's going to be greenlighting or approving the spend, they have another set of concerns. The person who's sitting at the top, they're looking at it very differently. And so what we need to do is we need to think about, why won't somebody do what we want them to do? And again, that's a lot of times in marketing we focus on why should people do what we want them to do, right? Oh, they should do it for these reasons,
Yeah.
and that's fine. But But that's only half of the story. We should also think about, well, why might somebody not? Despite all this list of,
Mm.
bullet points about these wonderful features and benefits and how great we are, why would somebody maybe not do it? And when we look into why, each individual person in our target market, regardless of the level they're at, like, why would the end user maybe not want this? Why would the CFO, the person who's going to approve the finances, what might hold them back? What might the buying barrier be? What about the CEO? What might they be concerned about? When we can identify why somebody may not do what we want them to do, then we can look into behavioral science and identify the right tactic to use to
Mm.
overcome that barrier. So, somewhere along the line, somebody who's maybe thinking, all right, I have to put together my short list and bring it up the line to my supervisor and say, I've done the research and here's the short list of vendors we should consider.
Yeah.
And they might be thinking, I don't know, I really like this company, but they're not well known.
Yeah.
And if I put them on the list, how am I going to look?
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
that
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
exposing me, right? So you say, but all right, so let's give that person, some information to make them feel this is a good choice. And
Yeah.
maybe we use something that behavioral scientists call framing. So you go to that person and you say, you're the kind of person who doesn't always follow the crowd. You are smart enough to know when something looks good and seize that opportunity. And suddenly you're thinking about adding that unknown vendor onto your short list in a different way. You're not thinking about like, the boss is going to say to me, why did you, I've never heard of them. Why are they on?
Yeah.
You framed it in a way that makes them feel like, yes, that's what I want to do. Somebody else might be, thinking, never heard of them. I don't know, that they may not be right for our company. And then we turn to social proof and we say, well, we have X number of companies in your vertical that already use us. So that
Mm.
makes them feel comfortable, I should
Yeah.
say.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what we try to do is identify the barrier at each step along the way for each person we're communicating with along the way, and then find the appropriate behavioral science lever that might overcome it, that the behavioral science informed argument to kind of make that person feel like, okay, I can move on, and that helps you get up the ladder and get to that ultimate committee of people who are going to make that buying decision.
That's super smart, Nancy. I was just sitting and thinking, if we were to conduct any kind of study here, how would you typically go about it? Would it be like a questionnaire, or would you try to book a one-on-one meeting, or like how does one practically go about the disclosing what method to select?
Yeah, no, and that's a good question, and certainly yes, we can survey people, we can ask them, why did you buy, or why did you almost not buy, which
Yeah.
is sometimes more valuable, or why didn't you buy? But the other thing that we can do is we can talk to the people who are on the front lines, our sales representatives, because they hear a lot of this, because they're doing it on a day-to-day basis. So they hear what people say. We can also talk to our customer service representatives because they get calls, from existing customers who are maybe having a problem. And so that puts us out ahead in terms of that information. We can find out, well, where do people have complaints? Where are people very happy? Where do people have questions? So some of that information is actually resident within the company. It resides within the company. It's just finding the right department, whether it's the salespeople or the customer service people or the people who are answering the phone on a regular basis. But sometimes it's going into discussion forums. It's looking online to see what people are saying, because there's some studies that show that before you even get a salesperson in front of a company, they've already done a huge amount of research
Yes. Yeah.
talking to, right? Of course, you're familiar with this, and so are your
Yeah.
listeners,
Yeah. Yeah.
So we want to get out there and we want to find those discussion forums. We want to find those social media posts. We want to do some social listening, see what people are saying, because that helps us get a handle on how we're being perceived in the market, and it also in a broader sense helps us get a handle on what the big concerns are, what are people looking for, what's on their mind, and that can be very helpful in addition to conducting specific survey research or focus group research.
Hmm. That makes sense. Okay. If we change chapter a little bit, Nancy, I know you have so much practical experience, so that's I want to kind of drill into like specific medias as well, so like emails or landing pages and stuff like that. So if we so email always been a big part of, yeah, both B2C and B2B. What should we ask? So B2B emails. What can you say about nudging and B2B emails, Nancy?
Sure, sure. So,
I know it's a broad question, but I know you also know a ton about it.
yeah. So I think, I mentioned, the idea of free versus complementary. That, that's a good tip. But now I want to talk about something that behavioral scientists call the isolation effect,
Yeah.
also known as the von Restorff effect. But it's this idea that we, as people, we're hardwired to notice things that are different. And this goes, way back to our ancient ancestors when, they'd get up in the morning, they'd stick their head out of a cave, they'd scan the horizon. And if everything looked the way it did the night before, the day before, that was a good thing, right? You felt safe, you felt comfortable. But
Yeah.
if something were different, as you were scanning the horizon, if something new were there, or if something had been removed, that could present a threat. And back in those days, the days of our ancient ancestors, that could be a real life or death threat. All these years later, we are still hardwired to notice things that are different, things that stand out from their surroundings because, they could be a threat. Uh,
Mm.
Often these days they're not, but we're still very attuned to anything that is different. So it's why, like if you go to a landing page and there's something off on the side, some ad on the side that's moving, the movement pulls our eye away. So that's
Yeah.
not a good thing. You want people on the landing page. You don't want them looking over here. But getting back to emails, what that means is if we can create our emails so that they have something a little different than most of the emails that are going to show up in your inbox, that can be a good thing. So, for example, if you all cap one word, or even a couple of words, as long as it's fewer than half of the words in your subject line, you can actually get um, I have my notes here, a
Yeah.
21% 21% increase in opening rate. And this is
By
according to
captioning just one or a few words.
yeah, just
That's
all
funny.
caps using
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
capital letters for one or two of the words, 21% increase in opening rate. If you put one or two of the words inside of brackets or parentheses,
Mm.
right, that can get you a 28% increase in opening
Yeah.
rate. If you lead with a number, if the first thing in your subject line is a number, but using the actual numerals, don't spell it out, use the number nine, don't
Yeah.
write
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
N-I, any, right? That can get you a 16% increase in your opening rate. Um, Even emojis, and a lot of times in B2B, we think, oh, emojis are way more consumer focused, but
Yeah.
uh, there are successful use cases for emojis in B2B that can get up to a 28% increase in opening rates.
Mm.
Things like a calendar icon or a hourglass icon, things, speaking to urgency. But what all of these things have in common is they're using the isolation effect. Most people don't use an emoji, don't use brackets, don't have a number at the beginning of their subject line, don't all cap a word or two. And because of that, those are the things that stand out. When open up your computer or your iPhone and you're scanning your inbox, those are the subject lines that are going to stand out. They're going to
Yeah.
be different than all the other ones. And as a result, you're going to get that lift in opening rate because of it. So it's a great way to use behavioral science just to get your email opened.
Yeah. It's really. I think this first of all tells me that never underestimate investing some time in actually crafting a good subject line, because and maybe that's a good segue to talk a little bit about AI as well, because I think if we're not already in it, we're heading towards an explosion of emails hitting your inbox, because more and more people learn how to use AI to automatically write mails and send left and right. But I think what we'll see is that the humans, as you said, like back in the day, you could scan the neighborhood and see, can I trust what's out here or can I not trust it? And I think humans, as well as machines, will become really, really good at detecting whenever AI has been in there. So a human written subject line might also be what looks different, because it's not written with the same pattern that an LLM would have come up with.
Yes, I think you're absolutely right. The idea of that human element, that very, the emotion that humans have, the empathy that humans have, the way with words that humans have, the distinct voice that a brand might have. Those are all things that help separate us from AI. Now, Could there possibly in the future be a time when your AI is so trained on your voice and so trained perhaps on behavioral science tactics that uh, they can use all of the things that we're talking about right now? Perhaps. Is it there right now? It is not. So what we want to do is we want to leverage that authenticity. We want to use our, our voices, and we want to, we want to draw from our own stories because those are ours and ours uniquely. You can't source those
Mm.
out on the internet. There are stories, and we know that storytelling is an incredibly powerful tool for
Yeah.
marketing in B2B as well as in B2C. So when we can pull those stories out from our things like our founder's story or customer stories where we're solving problems and we're making the customer the hero, not our company, not our product. Our company or our product is the way that the customer becomes the hero. When we can focus on those things, those are not messages that AI can generate, and they are messages that are going to be relevant to our target market and that will resonate with our target market.
Yeah, and I think here we can talk about authenticity as well, because there's something about things you've experienced yourself when you communicate these stories. They just come across with much more trustworthiness than if it's something that an AI spun out from reading a few articles. I don't know what it is with authenticity, but it kind of both, it can shine through both physically, but it can also when you write.
Yeah, I think if you've really experienced something, you'll have details, very specific details that stood out in your mind that somebody else wouldn't necessarily have, or that an AI wouldn't have. You also experienced emotions, whatever the story was, whatever whether it was a challenge that you had that you overcame, whether it was a defeat that you regret because you made the wrong choice. There's emotion there, and that emotion is going to come through because you felt it. And the thing about emotion is that connects people, right? People make decisions for emotional reasons, and then they later justify their decisions with rational reasons. So anytime a marketer can infuse some emotion into their marketing messages, it gives them a leg up or a head start. The B2B Institute actually found that if you infuse emotion into B2B marketing messages, you can expect 7 times the sales, the profits, and the revenues. So it's a real dollars and cents,
Yeah.
explanation or argument, I should say, for using emotion. And sometimes in B2B, we're like, oh, well, emotion is for that business to
Mm.
consumer stuff, but not for us. It's all about the speeds and feeds and the facts and the figures. And all of that is necessary, but it's lacking if the emotion isn't also there, because people are making decisions for emotional reasons. 80% of decisions are made in the emotional part of the brain.
Yeah. Carl Adamson is writing here. Using behavioral science with AI should be the next Nancy Harhut book.
Carl is going to keep me very busy if he wants me to write that. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Nancy, just a little bit more like very tangible stuff, and then we can zoom out again. At the other side of an email click is typically a landing page. Based on kind of all the things you've experienced, what are kind of the most important things for a landing page to become successful? That kind of the receiver of the traffic we get from our clicks.
Sure. So when people land on a landing page, well, first of all, they want to know they've landed in the right place. So if they came from an ad, or if they came from an email, or whatever it is that they came from, you want to make sure that that landing page reflects the sending source. You want the same uh, look. You want the same language, right? So if the ad is promising you one thing, when you land on the landing page, you want that message to be mirrored, because the first thing people are trying to figure out is, am I in the right place?
Hmm.
Did I land in the right place? Then, the next thing they're wondering is, okay, they're interested, they're close to making that buying decision, whether it's actually making a purchase or whether it's taking the next step in the purchase continuum, whether you're downloading a price guide or a white paper or whatever. But they're going to want to know, am I safe doing this? So anytime we can pull in what behavioral scientists call social proof, right? This idea that if I'm not sure about what to do, I look at others, I see what they're doing, and I follow their lead. So if we talk about our top selling product, our most popular product, if we talk about the number of customers we've served, if we have a testimonial, and in fact, there's some research that shows a testimonial next to the button can do really, really well. And the thing about testimonials is you want the testimonial to come from somebody who is very similar to the person who's currently reading it, who's on the landing page. So if you can have a similar title or a similar industry, that can be very, very helpful. And one mistake that we often make with testimonials is we think they have to be perfect. We search all of our testimonials and we look for that one testimonial or that one
Yeah.
review that says, this is the most incredible, product. Everything is perfect about it. And we're like, that's the one I want to highlight. And what happens is people are a little skeptical and they're like, oh, I just don't know. Whereas if you find one that starts where somebody is, I wasn't sure this would be worth the price, but I decided to try it, and now I absolutely am convinced. I thought that most people, most companies in this field were interchangeable, but then I tried Acme. They are
Mm.
head and shoulders. But if you can start where the person is, that thing that's making them wonder, that's holding them back. Do I or do I not? Whether they're worried about the price or the reputation or the need, whatever it is. If you can find a testimonial that starts with that, people are like, that's what I thought. And we have a tendency to believe other people like ourselves way more than we believe the marketer. The marketer can tell you, oh, it's a great price. And you're like, well, of course they're going to say it's a great price. It's their
Yeah.
product, it's their
Yeah. Yeah.
service. But when someone like me writes a review and says, I wasn't sure, but I've tried a few different ones, and this is the one I always return to. This is the one that's worth the money. That's very powerful. So we want the social proof. The other thing we want to have on a landing page is some kind of credibility marker, some kind of authority. So if we've been featured in Inc. magazine or Fast Company magazine, if we're
Yeah.
part of the American Dental Association, any kind of a media mention or an association, a professional association, or a endorsement from somebody who's well known and an expert in the field, that is also very reassuring, and that helps get people to take that next step on the landing page because they're feeling, yes, I've landed in the right place. Yes, other people like me, like this product, and the authority principle. People have been taught to recognize and respect authority since we were kids. So when an authority says something, we believe it, and when an authority suggests we do something, we do. So if you have that credibility marker or that authority, that's also very helpful to have on that landing page. And these things all conspire to get people to take that next step, to fill out the information, to click the button.
I love it, Nancy. It's so good. And so many of these things are not rocket science. But if you forget the fundamentals, then stuff doesn't work. That's great, Nancy. It's super good. Cool. Okay, I'll let you go with this very practical application, and then let's zoom out a little bit again. If we think about the marketers and B2B marketers in general, what is it? Where do they typically go wrong when they try to then apply behavioral science? And what are the pitfalls that people typically fall into?
Yeah, now that's a great question. So I think there are a couple of places. So sometimes people think, B2B marketing, we're very rational,
Yeah,
and behavioral science, there's emotion there, so it's maybe it's fine for business and consumer, but it's not right for us. So without really considering it, they just reject it. They say, oh, it's not right for us because our customers are making very well thought out, well considered decisions. And, so they first have to get their head around the fact that that's not how people behave, not in B2B or in B2C. Like we're very often using those decision making shortcuts, those decision defaults. The other pitfall is they'll try something once. And
mm,
if it doesn't produce this incredible response, if you don't get that $68 million of incremental income generated, you're like, well, it didn't work for me. And the truth is, like many marketing tactics, we need to test.
yeah,
We can't always say with certainty this is going to work. Behavioral scientists have a lot of information about how people behave, and by tapping into that, it gives us a head start. We're making more informed guesses, if you will, or
yeah, yeah,
creating the right hypotheses because we have this input. But we still have to test to see, well, which is going to work best for my message, my market at this particular time. So one mistake is, they try it once, and if they don't get this incredible response, they're like, okay, it's not for me. And then a third mistake that people make is they misapply the principle.
Hmm.
So what do I mean by that? So we just talked a little bit earlier about social proof, right? So when people aren't sure of what to do, they look to others, they follow their lead. That's why testimonials work so well. That's
Yeah.
why, fastest growing, most popular product works so well. That's why, we've served, 700,000 customers in your field, right?
Yeah.
Those are
Yeah.
all social proof. But sometimes, so they're like, okay, social proof, but they kind of create a social proof backfire. So they say something like, too many people wait before they really do a audit at their company that will lead them to the knowledge that they need to acquire a particular piece of equipment or a particular piece of software. So you read that and you're like, too many people wait. Oh, okay. So a lot of people wait. Well, that's what I'm doing. I'm waiting too. And that's not the message that the marketer wants to convey. The marketer wants to convey that it's a mistake to do that. But because they're saying that a lot of people are doing it, what it does is it reinforces the wrong behavior. And that, so that's an example of misapplying
Hmm.
a principle. They think they think they're using it the right way, but they're actually using it the wrong way, or they inadvertently use it the wrong way. So I think it's those three areas. They either outright reject behavioral science because they don't think it's going to be applicable in
Yeah.
B2B, or they're misapplying a tactic, or they test something only once and think, okay, one and done, it's not for me. So it's a it's there's nuance, and you need to either find someone who has a lot of experience, or you need to get that experience yourself and do the testing and start to kind of accumulate the knowledge.
Very typically, when I'm out talking about marketing and what works, I very often refer to that kind of Thomas Edison quote about, "I found 10,000 ways that the light bulb wouldn't go on," and that's sometimes I think of like that's very much like marketing. That just gonna face it, not everything's gonna work. So rather run a lot of small experiments until you find out what works, and then when you do find something that works, then that's what the point of time where you can put a lot of resources behind your projects.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And sometimes, and you've said this earlier in our conversation, but sometimes they're kind of small and almost obvious changes, but we either forget about them or we discount them. There was a study that was done. It was an e-commerce company, and they had to start charging a shipping fee. And this was probably a B2C one because it was a $5 shipping fee. But
Mm.
you'd say, okay, well, people aren't going to love that because they don't like to pay for shipping, but $5, it's not that much, right? Everyone knows how much $5 is. It's not that much. But still, they ended up testing a $5 fee, or saying a small $5 fee. And when they added that small in the copy, they got a 20% increase in sales. And again,
Yeah.
it's a tiny change. It's not rocket science, but doing these little tests uh, help us uncover some pretty significant wins. It's just
Test, 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 test.
taking a step back and trying. And if you're familiar with behavioral science, again, it gives you a good platform to test from. Because you can create some good hypotheses and say, I think this might work because this is how people behave, or I think this might work because this is how people respond. So it gives you a good platform to do this testing, but you really do need to test. And some of them are small,
Yeah.
but the returns can be big.
That's nice. Speaking of behavioral science, Nancy, there's a yellow orange book behind you called Using Behavioral Science in Marketing. Is that
Yeah.
correct title, right?
Yeah, using behavioral science and marketing drive customer action and loyalty by prompting instinctive responses.
Boom.
It's 282 pages, 17 chapters, and over 25 proven, practical, actionable
Nice.
ways to increase engagement and response.
Yeah, can you tell just I'm feeling like wow, I should read Nancy's book now. But maybe just for those who are listening and for myself, what's inside the book? What's the motivation? What's the because here? Why should we read this book?
Sure. So, yeah, the reason you should read it is it will give you just a huge list of proven and easy to apply tactics that you can use in creating your marketing messages that will uh, in some cases automatically give you that lift. Now, again, we've said there's no magic wand. We can't make everyone do everything all the time, but when you apply some of these tactics, you will see that lift, and they're easy to apply. There's no particular cost. You don't have to change your tech stack or anything. It's easy enough to do, and it's easy enough to set up these tests. And I have heard from so many readers that have written to me saying, or have written in reviews saying, I've tried Nancy's techniques, I've tried the tactics, and I see the increase. I've seen, my emails are getting better response. I'm selling more product. So they're, again, they're proven. They're easy to get your head around. You don't have to know a lot about science. It's okay. They're very practical. And, in that 282 pages, there are so many. There are, I think, over 25 of these proven, practical, actionable tactics that are baked in. And the way I chose the 25, because, Stefan, there are hundreds.
Yeah, yeah, I
There are
could imagine.
hundreds.
Yeah.
But the way I chose the 25 is that for years now, as I've been working with my clients, these seem to be the 25 I have a tendency to return to, because they work over and over and over again for my clients, B2B clients, B2C clients, various verticals, various industries, various communications channels. It could be email, it could be direct mail, it could be landing pages, it could be social. But these 25 are the ones that just seem to constantly deliver. They became my go-tos. And when I had the opportunity to write a book, Kogan Page is a publisher in London, and they contacted me. They wrote to me and they said, "Would you be interested in doing a book?" I said, "Yeah, this would be a great opportunity for me to share with the larger community what I know works." Because we have an agency, we work with clients, but you can only work with so many clients. We're always happy to work with clients, but we're never going to be able to work with everybody, right? You
Mm-mm.
can't. It would be
No, no.
physically impossible. But if you get that message out there, so many more people could benefit from it. And people tell me, I'm a salesperson. I'm not even a marketer. This is a great book. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm not even a full-blown company. I don't even have a marketing department. This
You
is a
don't
great
even
book.
have to mention your evidence. Then, right? You should. It's fantastic. And Carl is writing, you must read Nancy's book. So seems like people who have read it really, really enjoy it, Nancy.
Well, that's great. Thank you very much for weighing in. I appreciate that. But yes, it's like, as the marketer, I can tell you it's good. But what's really important for social proof is when the actual readers are telling you it
Mm.
was beneficial, and here the actual readers are telling you it is helpful. So we've got a live demonstration of social proof right here
Yeah, you
in
can count on
this
an
live
order
stream.
from Dream Data soon. Nancy, we're already out of time almost. If people have just been inspired and want to learn more about you, obviously go buy the book. But if they want to get in contact with you or just continuing to following your work, where should they go?
Sure. So there are a few places. I'm active on social media. You can find me on LinkedIn, Nancy Harhut. You can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Threads. Um, then there's also the agency that I co-founded. It's HBT Marketing. HBT stands for Human Behavior Triggers, because that's what we're all about. And our website is hbtmktg.com. We kind of scrunched marketing. We took the vowels out. So hbtmktg.com. And you can contact me there. We've got a page of resources with interviews and articles that just go, far and wide on how to use behavioral science in marketing. And then, of course, check out the book. It's published by Kogan Page. You can find it online at koganpage.com, at Amazon, Barnes and Noble. But there's, a lot of great information there too. And I would love to hear from any of your listeners. If anyone wants to just email me with a question or to get a conversation going, you can email me or you can engage with me on LinkedIn, and I'd be delighted to engage. That would be a lot of fun.
There's more people writing, Nancy. So I think you're right about the book. We're out of time, Nancy. So I really just want to say thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me and us today. I really learned a lot and got very inspired about researching the good old influence book to look at your book as well. For those of you who are listening, if you like our conversation today, go search for Attributed where you listen to podcasts, because there's many more go-to-market conversations like this. Nancy, as I said before, thank you so much for taking the time, and everybody go follow Nancy on LinkedIn. Have a great day, Nancy.